All right, welcome back into another episode of Indiebnb. Today I'm joined by Sam, most notably known as Jam Mecum, and he is the bass player for both Pinto Sunshine and Cascadent, and he does some vocals as well in both those bands. And Sam, local Atlanta man, appreciate you coming on, man.
Grant, I really appreciate you having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great. Well, we met, in the most local of fashions at a show over there at the Masquerade in, I believe, Purgatory, and it was with Zoe Biani and our friends Midsummer Motel, and of course the ever loving Reese's Party. So such a good set group there.
It's a great group, great time. Another example of how incestuous that the Atlanta music scene can be sometimes. I was there out supporting Colton and Santi, who play in Pinto Sunshine, also play in Zoe Biani, and they do a great job. They've put out a lot of music recently together. And it's just, another example of the different relationships you can build just going out and supporting your local scene, and also just because a lot of those bands really kick ass. I'm a big Recess Party fan. They are an incredible group, and I've really wanted to book with them for quite some time, regardless of what band I'm playing in, because I'm just such a fan. And so it's a very great time to be in this community when there are so many bands that you don't just sort of respect as your peers, or are around and you listen to them because you kind of like their music, but you are genuine fans, and you have an emotional connection with their music.
Yeah, for sure. And I think going to the shows and supporting, I think that's those are the ways that you get to kind of make those connections and start to be able to build relationships to book. And you're in multiple bands, right? Like you have, two different projects currently. I'm sure that there may have been thirds at some point, but how do you balance that? What are the things, obviously you probably have, different roles in each one, but what are the ways you balance and, being in two bands that are so active?
It's not an easy job, especially when you take on more of a leadership role in bands. And for the longest time I thought that Cascadent was really going to be the only band that I played in for the rest of my life. When I was in my early 20s, I had played in groups somewhat in Atlanta. I had played at the Masquerade some. I had played in groups in high school, and had gotten to open up for Microwave when they had first started, before they had all blown up to an empty room. And at a certain point, I had chosen to stop playing music. I had decided to pursue other things, went to college, got involved in Atlanta's film community, had some incredible opportunities there, built some wonderful relationships. And in that process of going out and finding myself, I was introduced to a man, Jonathan Lee. And Jonathan is a guitar player, composer, a incredible songwriter, and someone who had really reignited the idea that I could, be in a group that really fulfilled that idea of wanting to not just play in a local band, but play music that excited me and challenged me as a musician and a performer. And Jonathan had told me that there was a group that he was playing in. At the time it was called Aoshi, and in time became Cascadent. And I was introduced to not only him, but a number of other musicians who I really respect, and it ended up having an incredible influence, not just on my musical experience, but my growth as a human being. And so next year we'll actually be celebrating our 10th year of being together in a group, and it's been a tremendous musical journey to get to where we've been, because even in that 10 years we just put out our first record last year. And so it's been an incredible journey of not just growth, but sort of tenacity and perseverance, and having to learn to make the most of what you have at times, but also be patient enough to wait for something that's going to pay off. And really I was fine with that being the final group that I ever played in. I've gotten so much fulfillment out of my time with those gentlemen, and I love them so much, and we've still got so much more to do together. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I was introduced to at a party a gentleman called Santiago Cabeza, and real lively gentleman, and he played in this band called Pinto Sunshine. And the first time I heard them, it took me back to being a kid who grew up going to music festivals. And when I was younger, I grew up going to a number of festivals, namely one called Wani down in Florida, and it was it put me on to reggae bands, it put me on to jam bands, it put me on to that real Cali roots vibe, and it was the first time where I'd really heard a local band who was focused on that kind of sound and evoking that type of energy, and not only that, but it was a bunch of really cool people, and they had an opening for a bass player, and I saw no better opportunity to step up and not only do something that brought me a sense of fulfillment musically, but they're a little bit younger than I am, and so to be able to give some type of guidance and advisement to some younger gentlemen who really have such an incredible opportunity in front of them. I saw no better opportunity to really give it another shot. And so, the last few years we've really grown together as a group, and not only that, but they've grown as songwriters in such a tremendous fashion. So I'm excited to talk about both. But to kind of give you a little bit of a nutshell of where I've been the last 10 years, it's been a very fulfilling journey as a musician.
I love it. You kind of go from your before college years, and you're playing in bands, and you think that's it, and then you go on a kind of a different journey where you kind of split your brain in two, and you're guiding one band, and the other band, it seems like there's a collective of some older folks in it. So when you're recording and coming in and contributing in both, like as far as the how it works for one versus the other, like what are what's your role, and where do you play into the the songwriting process for both projects?
Well, the great thing about both is they're all very collaborative. It's led by a very democratic ideal where really who has the best idea is going to come out on top. And so we're very much about making sure that everyone has an opportunity to not just have their input, but make sure that any vision and idea that we're willing to push forward with is something that everyone's okay with and comfortable with. And sometimes that's a lesson you have to learn the hard way. In my role in bands, I think one of the things that I do is play music. In a lot of other ways, I do everything else in regards to planning, booking shows, and sometimes that can be a heavy burden to do for one band, and doing it for both can also wear a bit of a load, but it's something that brings me a lot of joy. Wow. And what it ended up doing was giving me the opportunity to not only book in venues that I thought would take care of us and maybe take care of us financially, give it, net us a profit, but also give us the opportunity to play with bands that we wanted to play with and that we loved. And rather than being at the mercy of waiting for an email to come and someone to set up a show with us, and maybe we're super into one of the bands, maybe we're there and playing the gig. It's something that we had a little more control over, to not only make sure that we were satisfied as audience members or as members of the bill, but make sure that the audience who came to see the show is having a great time and is seeing something that's worthwhile. You know, it's so expensive to go out and do anything nowadays. You want to make sure that people are getting their money's worth, and it's something that I take a lot of pride in, being able to, at least for us, do something that allows us to sustain what we're doing in some capacity based on the shows that we play and the events that we put together. And so I will do a lot of booking shows and, you know, corralling gentlemen, whether in their 20s or their 30s, is a challenge in any regard and can be a full-time gig. And so I definitely take a lot of pride in that. But in terms of leadership in our bands, you know, it's important to note that everyone kind of, and it's something that I really love, because there's a lot of groups that really can only function when like one person is doing everything. It can be successful in a lot of ways, but it's something where, you know, I think for a lot of these ships to float, you need everyone to play a specific role and hold each other accountable. And whether someone's steering at one time and someone takes over for another period of time, it's always important that communication's there. And so there have been periods where, you know, I feel like I'm really kind of driving the boat in terms of, you know, hey, here's what we're doing. We're going and doing this photo shoot. We're going to go book this music video. But it's also, there's the responsibility that comes with it of, hey, what do you want to do for this? It's not so much, hey, here's what we're going to do. And that's an important distinction. And I think a lot of folks don't necessarily get into those positions and have the foresight to acknowledge. And it comes with a lot of experience of making mistakes in those roles. And so, you know, I'm lucky to have still been around and had the opportunity to make the right choices.
Yeah. Well, like, what are some of the things, like, as you kind of have this, I almost kind of take it as the band manager, but like the player coach kind of feel. You're Jackie Moon, it seems like, of both bands. Like, what are some of the things that you've, you know, when you're booking Pinto Sunshine versus Cascadent, like, are you like thinking one way or another? Like, could you book one to open for the other? Could you book one to, you know, could that be a possibility? Or like,
so, you know, so it's only happened one time in history, and I'm pretty sure it's the only time it's ever going to happen, because if I ever do it again, I'm probably going to pass out on stage. So in regards to booking, like I said, it's something that's brought me a lot of fulfillment, but you know, you also see opportunities. And one of the things that we've done, we're actually going to be announcing the next one here in about a week or so. When will this come out?
We'll be live not this coming week, but the week after. So the second week in August.
Okay, so it should be announced by then. We created an event 3 years ago called Pintoween, and I have a big hand in it. It's something that I take a lot of pride in. You know, I've seen a lot of bands that do Christmas events and stuff like that, and I thought that, you know, this band deserved a platform to really showcase what we do, but also bring our audience together and do something that felt bigger than just a show, bigger than just a concert. And so a couple of years ago, we had the first Pintoween. And on that first Pintoween, it was Novu Mora, Cascadent, Pinto Sunshine, and was it Challenger Deep? Oh goodness, who was on that? Now I have to find out, or else I'm going to feel terrible. But we did that, and I ended up playing a Cascadent set directly into a Pinto Sunshine set, and we're talking about almost 2 hours straight of playing music. And so Cascadent finishes their set, and if you have ever seen a Cascadent set, one of the things you will understand about us is we move. We get crazy. We are sweaty, especially me. And by the end of that set, I'm drenched because obviously I'm giving it my all. Then I got to turn back around, and we open the set by covering Deftones, And about 30 seconds into the Pinto set, my entire hand cramps up. And so I am playing the entire song, thank God it's a Deftones song, with a finger and a half. And so I'm just jumping all over the fretboard trying to imitate Chi Chang, rest in peace, bless his heart, and doing my best to try and make, survive, because I don't know how long this is going to last. We get 1 or 2 songs in and I finally get my hand back, but it was the most excruciating kind of, we're going to have to push through this. There's no going back from here. I finally got through with it, and we had played through our entire set. It was not only this feeling of relief and joy, but just this utter exhaustion. I thought I was going to pass out in the backstage of the Masquerade. And so we had hosted the first Pintoween at the Masquerade. Last year we had it at Smith's Old Bar with Wardrobe Malfunction, Menu, All I Hear Is Birds. It was a fantastic, incredible show. And then we're going to be announcing the 3rd annual Pintoween at the Avon Theater in Avondale Estates on Saturday, October 31st, Halloween night, for the first time. It's going to be an incredible show.
So we got Pinto, the 3rd annual Pintoween, Avon Theater, Avondale Estates, Georgia, Saturday, October 31st. The band's yet to come. So you're gonna have to, stay on the old socials to figure out, who's gonna be jamming at that particular festival. But how much goes into that? I mean, you guys have, obviously you're booking bands for this. It's almost like you've got so many different hats you're wearing. Like, how do you keep it all straight? Like, what's your organization like?
Well, it's a little easier when you don't have any hair. You can just kind of interchange them and switch from. I gotta stay out of the sun. Anyway, it's something that I start planning. I'm thinking about it all year round. When the first one ends, like I said, it's something that's really important to me. I take a lot of responsibility over the booking. We always try to break out covers that we've never done before. Sometimes we never play them again. We've covered Deftones songs, we've covered Radiohead, we've done Franz Ferdinand, Into Black Sabbath, which is, to me, was one of the coolest things that I've ever gotten to do. It gives me an opportunity to go out and flex my vocal cords and do a little bit of my fun, and it's outside of the typical norm of a Pinto Sunshine show, so it's exciting for us, exciting for the fans, and we try to keep it that way, especially when we bring on bands that we really love and we respect. So we're really excited to announce it, and we hope that it's something that's going to deliver and make people excited for years to come. But in terms of putting it together, it's something that I'm working on 6 months beyond in advance in terms of logistics. It takes a lot especially to convince a venue that you're going to make them money on Halloween night, when they could have anyone else. And so we especially during that time of year, when it comes to booking events, we take it very seriously. We want to play at venues not only that we respect, but maybe spots that we've never really hosted a show before. And for me, in a promotional aspect, it's something where, you really only have so many chances to put on a show like that. And so I want to take advantage of every one. And so there's a list of venues that I got sort of in the dome that I keep in mind for special events. And that's one I've always wanted to go to. One of the bands that we hosted on Pintoween last year, Wardrobe Malfunction, had hosted a album release show on New Year's Eve of this past year. Our friends in Frigga 5 had played it. It was a great time. And it was my first time getting the opportunity to go to that venue, and I saw it and I fell in love. And it's immediately when I walked in, I thought Pintoween. And I was, the wheels started turning, and thankfully we were introduced to the management. I want to shout out Wes from Wardrobe Malfunction. I also want to shout out my friend Daniel Karasek, who's done a lot for us in a promotional aspect and given us new opportunities outside of the, hey, we just booked this venue, we want you all to come play it. There are other opportunities in regards to, hey, come be the entertainment. The people are going to be there, make sure they have a good time. And Daniel's someone who has an eye for talent, and I really respect his eye for talent. And so when he gave us the call to play at events like, the Cabbagetown Bake Sale and Chomp and Stomp, and, ended up putting us in touch with the folks from Avon Theater, it's something that for me, a lot of this networking, we couldn't do without. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to do, any kind of logistical work in a vacuum. And so you rely on your friends, you leverage the people to earn that trust, and it's something that I take a lot of pride in doing.
I love it. I mean, I think like the passion you have for Pintoween, like I think people need to recognize that, and they need to come out and support it. So if we our goal at our show is to always try to find one more fan for you, or somebody who doesn't know about you. And I think that this is a perfect example of an opportunity to go support multiple bands that are going to put on a great show, and it's the 3rd annual. So I mean, look, if you've done something 3 times, it's got to be it's got to have legs, and it's got to be it's got to have something something to it. So
3rd time's a charm, baby.
What's the what are the is there a costume contest? Like, are there any other accoutrement with the Pintoween?
We always encourage costumes. We've done a costume contest before. We did one last year. There was a little merch bundle. We've got some other plans that we're cooking up for the event itself, but we'll have a little bit more to talk about once the event is announced. And it's something that I try to not only make feel like a exciting musical show. It's one thing to come out and be like, hey, we're gonna have a good time, bands are playing, then we're gonna go home. I want it to feel in some ways more than that. And for me, as someone who not only gets to go to these events but gets to play on stage, it's something that I want to get the most out of. And if I have any kind of opportunity to make it better, I'm going to take advantage of it.
I love it. Well, what else, you mentioned before we hopped on here, we got some newer tunes that we're in the works with. So like, other than Pintoween, like, what are the things that we got, like, kind of in the hopper right now to, that you're excited about?
Well, yeah. So there's a lot of work we've been doing. In live shows, we always stay busy. Cascadent had just played a show at Smith's Old Bar with our friends in Novu Mora, our friends in Eska, who are longtime, in some ways siblings of this group. The lead vocalist of Eska is John Mark Hendricks. He's not only a musician and songwriter that I respect, but just a man that I really, look up to and consider a close friend. He was one of our vocalists, and was with Cascadent for a period of time when we were still figuring things out. He's on our very first release in Aces Over Kings, which came out in 2018, and he's on the final song of the Cascadent record, Carousel Spin. There's a moment on there where he's singing. Our current vocalist, Bradley Pallone, who is an incredible songwriter, incredible vocalist, the perfect fit for this group, and myself are all sort of singing and screaming in unison and harmony. And it's something that, for me as a songwriter, as a performer, was one of the more, for me, not only like fulfilling, it almost doesn't do it justice. It was almost poetic, the opportunity to go in and really sort of bring that full circle. And it's a moment throughout the building and long process of that record coming together, because it took the better part of 6 or so years for that record to really, from conception to production, and having to re-track everything and find new. Thank God we had so many different incredible engineers and producers who were willing to not only see us out and help us, but see our vision and really help us achieve that and be able to take it to another level. Aaron Pace, Corey Batista, Greg Hendler, David Braden. It's something where we've really had the opportunity to work with folks who gave us the opportunity to grow. You know, whether it was through working at home in a studio or going out to someone whose records we respected. You know, we had always been big fans of bands like Seder and the Calistow Boys, and aspired to find, you know, someone who helped us achieve our vision, and we felt that Corey Batista did exactly that. And it was such an incredible process to really have someone who helped you achieve that vision and be like, no, you can even do better than that. We had gotten to a point where we had recorded a lot of our material and needed to go back and do a lot of cleanup work. We were kind of messy on our own, and it allowed us to grow a lot during the pandemic. And I just also want to shout out Greg Hendler. I know I mentioned him earlier, but he helped us clean that up with Meadowlark Audio Works without even talking about, there wasn't even like a talk about like a rate or something. He helped us understand what it was to walk into one of these, you know, settings with your shit together in terms of tracking, and helped us get to that point without even talking about, you know, fees and everything. And it felt almost wrong, but he really stepped up and was like, hey, let me clean this up for you, and then we're gonna get it where it needs to be. And I just, you know, I really appreciate that man so much for helping that record come to fruition, because I don't know that it would have happened without him. And that record celebrated a year anniversary release last year. Now, Pinto Sunshine, on the other hand, we've been building up towards a record for quite some time. In fact, we've been releasing singles and music for the better part of a year and a half. I've been in the band for, I want to say, 3 years at this point, three and a half years at this point, and we've been releasing singles. There was a record that had come out before I had joined, and it's got some good songs on there, but I knew the first time I had heard it that this band could do better in a production sense, that they could do better sonically. And I had mentioned my man Greg Hendler earlier, and there was a specific moment about 3 years ago where, coming off the heels of the Cascadent record tracking and finding out that I had joined Pinto Sunshine, we went out, we played a little disc golf, which is what, you know, some good friends do. And he pulled me aside and he said, I know you just joined this band, and I know you see the potential that they have. Like I said, they're a little bit younger than I am. And sometimes you see bands who have that window of opportunity where they're very naturally gifted, and there's not really anyone out there who's not necessarily like advising them, but someone who, you know, you're able to feed off of their influence and their creativity, and it's someone you trust, and sometimes someone you're paying for. You know, sometimes it can be detrimental to only lean on your friends. Much as you love them, sometimes you have to be able to hold folks accountable, and sometimes the best way to do that is with funds. And it's something that when you see folks who have that window of opportunity, you really want to do everything that you can to help them achieve that. And he looked at me and said, hey, I know you see the same thing that I do. Is there anything I can do to help you achieve that? And I was like, well, I'll have to have a conversation with the boys. Because at that point, you know, when you're a young band, it can be a bit of a hurdle and a bit of a conversation to convince someone to really spend some money on production and hey, we need this, we need to make an investment. And it can be a growing process, but once you really see the benefits of it and you're able to compare the two, you wonder why you never did it in the first place. And so it's been an incredible journey, because we had started working with Greg Hendler, and he had produced all of the singles that we've released up until this point, and he's been working together with us on a soon-to-be-announced record that we're incredibly excited about. For me as an artist, it's an opportunity to really showcase a different aspect of my playing, a different aspect of my role in a band that's out of the norm of what I've been able to do over the last 10 years. And for me, this is really the pinnacle of what we've been able to do with that. I'm super proud of Colton, Noah, and Santi and the growth that they've shown, but also for, really welcoming me into that group with open arms from the moment that it started, and giving me an opportunity to grow as a songwriter and really push me, because they are some incredible musicians, and in some ways I feel intimidated by their talent and very humbled by the fact that they're willing to reassure me that I belong. Something I'm very thankful for.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so it sounds like we're building towards an album for Pinto Sunshine. And we can. I know we've had a few. You guys have had a few thousand drops, and a couple other singles have released. So those will, are available on the old Spotify, anywhere you find the streaming platforms, and we'll have to have people check those out, and we'll make sure we're putting both socials on here so we can get the you can have all things for both bands available to everybody who's listening to the show now. And as we wrap up here, want to get into the Pete Peterson party pack of questions. Our 20 questions, right. Mainly this or that, food based. So Jam Mecum, here we go. Cake or pie?
I love the pie.
Gonna be a pie. All right.
Pie,
salad
man.
Or soup?
Lately, if you asked me before a couple months ago, I probably would have said salad, but I don't think anyone's touching it nowadays, so I'm going to have to go with the soup.
Staying away from the diseases. He's hitting the soup. I like it. Sunrise or sunset? What are you seeing more of these days?
Sunset, in a sense.
Sunset. I love it. Would you rather hit a home run or score a touchdown?
Ooh. It's a good question, because I was a terrible athlete in life. There's a reason I'm a musician, but I'm a huge baseball fan nowadays. Shout out the Braves. I would love to have hit a home run.
I love it.
Or at least have a batting average above 0.
I like it. All right. Well, are you having more nights in or nights out these days?
Ooh, that's a good question. If I had my choice, probably nights in. But you spend a lot of time out playing shows. You spend a lot of time out meeting people, living in the city. You spend a lot of time out working. I don't just play in these bands. I'm also a full-time career man and spend a lot of time traveling. And part of that is going out and seeing the cities I'm in. I've been thankful, grateful enough to be able to travel a lot for my work, and so I spend a lot of time out.
I love it. All right, when you do go out and your jam comes on, are you more likely to hit the robot or the worm on the dance floor?
I was a worm man back in the day.
Are we a worm man in 2026?
Oh, I don't know if I could stomach it these days. I don't know if my back could take it.
All right,
at 32, I might have to stick to the robot.
Fair enough. All right, guac or queso, your favorite Tex-Mex spot?
Oh, queso, 100%. Queso with a little bit of chorizo in there, some peppers and onions. Give me some kind of skillet. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
But if you're making guac, I'm gonna give you a secret. I'm gonna spill the beans for you. Sorry, spoilers. Use a little bit of orange, a little bit of citrus.
All right.
It makes such a difference. You're welcome.
All right. I love it. A little citrus in your guac, some orange, something I have not heard. Waffles or pancakes?
Waffle man. I just made some waffles this past weekend. A bit of a homemade chicken and waffle recipe ahead of our show, and it was amazing. So I'm gonna have to go with that.
I love it. All right, coffee or tea with your waffles?
Coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah, coffee. Big old cup of coffee.
All right, I know the answer to this one, I think, because they've been walking around, and if you're on video, you've seen them. But dogs or cats?
Ooh, I'm definitely a dog man. Come here, boy. Get up here.
There we go. Oh,
This is Nash.
Nash.
Yeah, he's a good one. He's my best friend.
I love it. I love it.
And he's been there for a lot of the music, and a lot of me being out on my own, and couldn't ask for a better companion. But I think that answers your question.
For sure. For sure. All right, do you identify more as a ninja or a pirate, would you say?
Ooh. When I was a kid, I was born in the Carolinas, and we always had books about Blackbeard. We had books about the Carolina Pirates. My mother was a Carolina pirate, an East Carolina pirate. So you know what? I've got to represent the purple and gold, I think, in that capacity.
I love it. Shout out Greenville, North Carolina. Go
That's
Pirates.
Right.
All right. Chips or pretzels?
Ooh. I'm a chips man. I was about to... I'm a Pringle man myself.
Get in the Pringles himself. I like it.
Gotta get in the Pringles, man. I think it's empty,
but... All right. Fries or tots?
Ooh. Give me some fries. Give me some shoestring. Give me some waffle fries. Give me some homemade frites. Give me some steak frites.
Ooh, the big thick fries.
Absolute fucking despair.
There we go.
Steak frites, sauteed spinach. Absolute fucking despair.
I like it. I like
what I'm about.
All right. TV show or a movie after a long day?
That's actually a really good question. I'm typically one to put... I love movies. I've worked in film. I've worked in TV. I love a good movie. But if I've been working all day, I'll come home, I'll put on some Sopranos. I'll put on some pro wrestling. I'll put on my shows. I'll put on a little X-Men 97. I think I'm definitely a TV show man. You know what? It's probably my ADD. I can't stay on something too long.
I respect that. All right. If you were a fruit, what kind of fruit would you be?
Oh, that's a good question. I am... Refrain from making a bold joke. I'm a banana man.
Banana man. I like it.
I'm a banana man.
Banana man.
Up in South Florida. That's something I really can't go without if I'm making, smoothies. I need a quick breakfast in the morning. Always got to have a little potassium on hand.
I like it. All right. Is love at first sight real?
You asked me after lately, I don't know. It's a good question. I think chemistry is easy to find. Compatibility is a little bit harder.
That's true. That's true words right there. I like it. All right. And you mentioned a bunch of bands, but last question. Who are two bands that we ought to check out that we might not know?
The first band that comes to mind is Assembly. It's some incredible musicians that I was lucky enough to discover through going to local shows. They had come out of another project and had, brought in another bass player that Forrest from Strumbrush, who brought so much to this group. Jack, Josh, Robert. They are such incredible musicians, and in a lot of ways, myself and Jonah Volk from Cascadent especially are very much in awe of. We go to a lot of these shows and we just sort of geek out on not only the fact that we love this type of music, but that there's still people younger than us who are making music that we enjoy. It's one thing to say, hey, are younger folks going to be able to relate to the music I make? It's a whole other conversation to say, am I going to be able to relate to the folks that musicians younger than I are making? And I'm very glad to be in a period right now in Atlanta music where I'm surrounded by bands who are making music that is not just sufficient, that's not just exciting, but are really starting to push the boundaries and get attention. And Assembly is absolutely one of those bands. Another one, oh, that's a really good question. All I Hear Is Birds is a band that constantly impresses me. I think they're going to be on Fest this year. And it's also just some guys that I really love, that I've really become to, know as brothers. And when I see them at any opportunity, I just take every opportunity to tell them, like, hey, I love you. I'm really glad you're here. And they make a type of music that, for me as a local musician who came up in a lot of hardcore scenes, and there's a lot of screamo, and there wasn't a lot of influence from almost blues, and finding ways to not just recycle an old thing but meld that with something new. I know Chance Adams, the frontman of All I Hear Is Birds, is a huge fan of punk and hardcore music, bands like Pup, stuff like that. And I know that's why it's such a big deal for them to be going and playing Fest down in Florida this year, because that's such a pinnacle for bands like that who are really into that hardcore scene. God knows I've applied for it before, but they really, I think, have that sort of street cred with their sound, but are able to meld it with a type of old school, authentic sound that I just really appreciate. And when Cascadent was recording our record Telemetry with Corey Batista, we were doing all the music or the instrumentation for it. All I Hear Is Birds were also recording their record, and we got to hear little snippets and see them grow as musicians in a way that really left such an imprint on me. And then when I got the chance to really develop a relationship with each of them as men, and I came to respect them so much. So I absolutely want to shout out my boys and All I Hear Is Birds.
I love it. We got two A bands. We got Assembly. We got All I Hear Is Birds. We gotta check them out. Well, Sam, this has been awesome to kind of hear your perspective and hear your side of things, and looking forward to obviously Pintoween, and as we move forward into the Pinto Sunshine record coming in. We'll have your links for Cascadent as well, and appreciate you taking the time this evening to come and join us in the Indiebnb, brother.
Grant, it's been such a pleasure to come out and do stuff like this. I don't really get the opportunity to a lot, so when I say that, I really do mean it. Thank you so much for giving me your time, for giving me your listeners' time. It's something I don't take lightly, especially when I get the opportunity to represent not one, but two different bands. I don't really get the opportunity to talk about both. It's usually being the, face of one or the other. And so thank you for giving me the time to rant about myself and my experience. It's something that I will definitely look back on fondly. And so I appreciate it.
You got it, man. Thank you so much, and we'll see you out there in the scene, brother.
Have a great rest of your night.
You too.